Thank you, Jen. Welcome, everyone. It's great to be back. I've done a few of these presentations online, but it's a bit different being back up on stage. So I haven't actually got a laptop in front of me, so I'm going to be referencing a screen over there. So if you wonder why I'm looking over that way, I'm going to go through the technology update. I'm going to touch on service issues. I'm going to go through the significant projects that we're going to be finishing towards the end of the year. I'm going to talk a little bit about SAFE because I think it's quite important for you all to appreciate how we invest our resources, our internal resources with LINX staff into projects and how they come through the decision process about how we prioritise things. And then that leads me nicely on to what we hope to prioritise in 2022, the significant projects that we're planning to do on technology. And that will feed into the budget. As you heard from Jen, Curtis will be presenting, Curtis and Malcolm, on the budget. So give you an appreciation of where we're investing. As always, if there's any questions as we go through the presentation, please put your hand up, or I hope someone's checking online. Put your hand up and we'll get a mic to you, and I'll take a question any time. It's not a problem. So from a service issue point of view, we've seen, since we presented at the last LINX meeting, virtually, we've seen three issues. The first two there, one was back in June and one in July. So the June one was a failure on our Juniper network. It was a communication failure between the FPC and the routing engine. We raised a bug with it, but effectively the communication between the two cards, the keep alive failed, the routing engine reset the FPC, and it came back into service. So it was a momentary hit for those members connecting on the FPC. On the 28th of July, this was fault finding. A loop was applied, and it created a short broadcast storm that would have affected some members on the Telehouse North Core 3 device. The other event, which actually is still, unfortunately, still going on to some degree over in Nova. So on Friday, this last week, we lost a dark fibre to our transmission pop in the Equinix. So for those not over familiar with the setup over in North America, we have a peering exchange across three sites with an extension into the Equinix Ashburn site through a solution called transmission pop, which is just a layer 1 extension. So the dark fibre that was going out to that site broke. We tried to fix it. Our telco partner and the data center partners worked with our teams. Unfortunately, we couldn't fix that over Friday evening, so we then Saturday re-engineered the transmission pop because we've got a 100 gig transmission pop and a 10 gig transmission pop. We managed to re-engineer on Saturday to route all of the active traffic over the 100 gig transmission pop, and so at the moment everything is stable and everything is good, but we're still investigating why that failure happened, and obviously returning the resilience with the two fibres is key to that. So unfortunately I can't give you a conclusion on that, but we will update on the Nova list for those that are interested in that. So significant projects that we're going to complete this year. So we've had a lot of projects go on this year, which I've updated, either myself or the team have updated as we've gone through. A couple of really key ones that we're going to do some more detail on. So the first one there is. So I was expecting them to transition then, but the first one there, Mike is going to give a detailed presentation at 5:40, I believe, on the portal. So just really there is a big thank you to everybody that we collaborated on. So Mike will go in and show you what it looks like and what to expect. We've had an external software team support our internal software team at LINX. We've worked with our marketing team, and we've had really great feedback from the beta group, from the members. So it's really pleased with the collaboration that we've achieved across that. The second item there is we'll be launching 400 gig, and we'll be launching 400 gig with a Nokia service. So Mariano is going to come up shortly after I conclude my presentation to go into this in more detail. All I wanted to really say was thank you to both Nokia and Juniper. Obviously it's a challenging time as we introduce a second vendor into London 1 to deliver 400 gig, and I think both Nokia and Juniper have been fantastic in supporting us. Through that process. It is now a multi-vendor LAN. Well, it will be a multi-vendor LAN when it goes live. But just to say thank you to both of the vendors that we're working with there to make this happen. The third point there is the ISO 27001. So we've actually, as we've gone through the year, we've been tracking the TSR. So these are the telecom security requirements, and also what's going to be coming next year is a cyber security assessment framework that's going to be applied to certain companies of our size. And so we've been tracking that. One of the things that we felt would be beneficial in getting us to a point of readiness to when these things start to impact us was to get ourselves certified, or initially just to get ourselves to the point where we're operating to the ISO 27000 structure. That has been a fantastic amount of work that has been going on. We've gone through stage 1 assessment. For those that are familiar with ISO 27000, we've gone through stage 1 already, and we're moving to stage 2. So the team are working on getting us complete for the final assessment at the end of the year. And we hope that we'll pass in December. We'll pass the certification and be certified as of next year. And that will put us in really good position for when we start to see some of the burdens of the regulation coming in onto LINX. And finally, we're going to complete the automation. For those that have been tracking, we first did all of the Juniper networks. We then moved all of the IP Infusion Edge Core networks onto automation. The last IP Infusion network is the partnership with Saudi Telecom, so the JEDEX peering exchange, and that is, I think, there's a maintenance upgrade on the 15th of November, actually, and that will be, by the end of November, moved onto the automation platform. And then that will be all of the LINX networks around the world will be running on our network automation platform, except for the legacy, the small legacy sites, which is Wales and Scotland, which still has the Extreme kit installed, and we'll be looking in 2022 about how we address that. So 4 real, big projects that the LINX engineering teams, well, with many teams in LINX actually working on this. So really, really great. They're going to be coming to a positive conclusion towards the end of the year. So I want to talk, before I get into the big projects that we're going to be doing in 2022, I want to talk a little bit about SAFE and LINX. So we've been operating agile methodology for our teams, not just our software teams, but our operational teams and marketing and sales teams as well. And we've implemented Scaled Agile for the company. So this is where what we try to do with the Agile SAFE. We take inputs from members, we take opportunities which comes to us from very, very many different places. Technology enablers, which I mainly talk about, and I'll be talking about the 2022 technology enablers. And obviously there's operational needs, as you probably all appreciate. There's elements that we just have to do, software upgrades and security patches. What this looks like, just from a graphical point of view, because I think too many text is words on screens it gets a bit boring, but graphically, this is what it looks like. So we get member feedback, we have technology enablers, we have new opportunities, they come into a company prioritization process. We've also got regulation, we've also got operational must-dos, and they all come together into the prioritization process. The scaled agile methodology gives us the ability to assess what's important and what we prioritize. So things that have come in from the membership this year, the portal, for example, 400 gig, 40 gig pricing updates, these are all things that we have to work on. Technology enablers, the automation, NCA 2.0, capacity builds, because we still, thankfully we've been growing the network and building out capacity throughout the year. And new opportunities, so the Manx IX was the latest one where we partnered with an internet to deliver an internet exchange peering point over in the Isle of Man. Regulation, that really comes from TSRs, NISD. Those are the things that really impact us from a technology point of view. And operational must-dos include things like DNOS upgrades, security patches. Now, there's a lot that then goes into the process, and what we try to do is we try and work out what's the most important thing to the business, to the delivering value back to the membership. We chop it up into 12-week programs called program increments, and then hopefully at the end of it, as you'll see from Mike and you'll hear from Mariano, we'll be delivering value back to the membership, whether that's a portal upgrade, the new version of the portal, whether that's 400 gig service, or whether it's launching a new internet exchange somewhere in the world. So that's the process we go through. I just wanted to put that out there for transparency, so that you understand where we invest the LINX resources, where we put staff. You know, there's plenty of LINX staff here at the event today, so if you have queries on any of this or questions, please do speak to them as we go over the next couple of days. So what that means, though, is I'm going to speak now about the technology enablers, but as I speak about technology enablers, they will be competing with other opportunities and also feedback from the membership as we go through 2022. So just bear that in mind as we go through that. So I think I've just talked through those slides, though. So investment for 2022, and where are we going? So a lot of it will fall on London 1. It's the largest network that we run, but what you're seeing from the presentation is we're also going to be investing in a lot of technology internally to make things run better for the membership. So the first one there is 400 gig. As I say, we're launching 400 gig, but it doesn't stop there. We're going to be pushing 400 gig onto London 2 as demand comes. We'll also be looking at where 400 gig invests for the interswitch link, so using it as a transport medium for connecting between our POPs as well. And just because we're talking about 400 gig investment, and you might be thinking, well, I'm not going to be ordering a 400 gig service. What we tend to do is, as we invest 400 gig, obviously there's members that will upgrade from N times 100 to 400. We'll then reprioritize those cards that are running 100 gig, and we hope to get then 10 gig members upgrade to 100 gig, and then we cascade that down. So we're always shifting the network and the components around to make sure we utilize that technology. So whilst we're investing in 400 gig, that has a ripple effect that benefits the whole membership across all of our lands. So just to bear that in mind. On the cloud compute, we've reached a point where we've end of life our operational support systems that we run on premise are now no longer, will in the next 8 months, 9 months be no longer fit for purpose. So we're going to investigate a project to look at how we invest in cloud, and I'm sure many of you have been through this. This will be how much do we move into a public cloud offering, how much do we move into a private cloud offering, how much do we spend to refresh our on-premise operational support system, and then obviously how much we develop around the platform as a service type approach. We'll also be continuing the digital transformation. So when you hear from Mike this afternoon, that's the first release. We've got plans, and hopefully we're going to get great feedback from all of you once you start using the portal. We've got some plans for what we then do next on the portal, on the engineering UI. How do we continue to digitize our services that we offer? We'll be launching features that you can then log in and start using, interacting directly with the network. So we're going to continue to push that, and that a lot of the priority around that will come back from what you feed back to us as the year goes on. We're also going to continue to invest in our security. So ISO 27000 is the first part that we've done. Big project for us this year, but it doesn't just stop there. For those that have been through ISO 27000 certification, I'm sure you're aware that there'll be some things that we need to improve. There'll be a recertification next year, and as I say, the TSRs will come into effect. So we'll also be doing an awful lot around the security side of things to make sure that we continue to operate under the regulation Ofcom from Ofcom. Oh, no, it's now lighting up. No. And then the final area is the monitoring. I mean, we like many organisations, we've got a whole range of legacy monitoring systems. We seem to have 1 or 2 monitoring systems per technology, so whether it's the exchanges, or whether it's the compute, or whether it's the applications or the software that we write, we tend to have far too many. So we're going to go through a rationalization process. We're also going to take the opportunity to look at, well, how can we bring some smart operations into that. So we're going to be investing in cloud-based, machine-driven analytics around events and monitoring, observation, telemetry. These are all things that we'll investigate. I would also ask this is going to be a bit of a research phase, so that if there's any of you that have gone through and done these sort of things, please do share that with us. We're always keen to learn and also develop alongside the membership. So those are the five areas that I've just covered are the main investments. So when we come to the budget, I would say probably the biggest capital investment that we'll make will continue to be on the London 1 network. But as I say, the 400 gig investment will have benefits across all of the lands as the technology ripples out. And I'm just going to pause there for any questions before I hand over to Mariano to go into detail on 400 gig. Yes. Tracy's just going to get you a mic.
Rob Golding, Astutium. You talk about 27001, which is good and a great idea. Will you be moving on to 22301, the management and DR processes? We haven't looked at that. To be fair, I mean, the resources that we have available. I mean, we've just looked at the 27001 as the first step, and so. We're hoping that we're going to complete that in December and be certified. There's a couple of areas that I won't go into huge amounts of these, but there's a couple of areas that we've put out of scope for now. We've presented to the auditors to say these elements are out of scope, but we're doing assessments and we're going to bring them in scope next year. So we've got quite a bit of work on the backlog for next year. So at the moment, our focus is only on the 27001. Dan, who's involved in this, he runs our BCP side of things as well. Dan Smith, who's presented before here. So Dan also runs BCP exercises. It's our own invention, if you like, but he runs business continuity practices where we rehearse and we go through various scenarios. So we've got a fairly good process in there, but we haven't applied it to an ISO standard yet. And will you be making those processes public so we can crib from them and criticise them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we can make public, but we, as always, we'll be as transparent as we can be. I mean, hopefully we get certified. Hopefully we'll be able to share that with the membership. As far as the BCP exercises we do, we'll take that away, and if there's interest that people hear about what we test ourselves with and how we go through that, I'm sure. Well, I don't want to speak for the rest of the team, but I'm sure we'd be happy to present to the membership on that. Thank you. Anyone else? Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm going to be here for the 2 days, so if there's any questions on any of the projects, or if you've got ideas as well that you think you've done in your company that would benefit LINX, please do come and approach me and share them with me. I'm going to hand over to Mariano to take us through 400 gig.
Thank you, Richard. Hi, everyone. My name is Mariano Julia. I'm the enterprise architect here at LINX, and this is my first in-person meeting. I'm going to talk you through our trip to 400 gig and how we got there. We started in March last year looking at the options in the market, both at our incumbents and other vendors and potential solutions. The key objectives then were to identify a long-term high-density 400 gig solution that was capable to integrate with our then VPLS network and compatible with our future EVPN plans on migration to EVPN on LON 1. We were also trying to identify a solution that was capable to integrate with our automation and management tools. The situation in the world, well, in March last year, we all went into lockdown. It was very difficult to arrange meetings. There were travel restrictions. We were a bit wondering how we're going to do a POC or how we're going to evaluate new technologies while we're all sitting, working from home and doing Zoom calls. We already had to postpone a verification of a hitless migration to EVPN on the Juniper state that was supposed to happen at the end of March last year, had to be put on hold. Looking at our options, at the time Juniper did not have high density solution, 400 gig solution for the MX960 platform. Our options were to go to the PTXs, but I at the time we were in the process of removing them, of had completely removed them from the network, so it didn't make any sense that we go back and reintroduce a PTX for the purpose of servicing 400 gig. We could have introduced the QFX, but then again, this was not a long-term strategic solution. Our last option was to wait 24 months for Juniper to bring out a high-density 400 gig card on the MX10K, which are our current core routers. EdgeCore and IP Infusion, which is our disaggregated solution for LON 2, we did consider the possibility of introducing them to LON 1, but then we would have the same vendor on the two LANs in London. That did not seem an ideal solution. In any case, EdgeCore did not offer both high density and 400 gig platform that was also capable of doing native MPLS support. And Ognos IP Infusion had not been ported to any of those platforms. For measure integration cycles on platforms that Ognos support take around 6 months. For newer platforms and newer Broadcom chipsets, they take between 12 to 18 months. We did look at Arista. They did offer the highest port density of all the options that we evaluated, and did they have the best automation and telemetry capabilities. They had an AirPoint driver that we use internally. We use Napalm for the automation of the network, and they already had a driver ready for us to use and a great user base. Unfortunately, they weren't able to support VPLS, and they didn't have any plans to go there, and they did not support Ethernet or AM. So our migration from VPLS to EVPN wasn't a certainty. We weren't exactly sure when this was going to happen. So on that basis, we couldn't go to Arista. Lastly, we looked at Nokia. They did support all the required features at the outset. They had good port density and were mostly competitive. And they were in use at our IXPs. Frank's IS uses them on a VPLS environment. They don't use the MXs, they use the EXs. But they do use them in a hybrid environment. And obviously DKICs have a native Nokia network. So due to the uncertainties in the summer of 2020, we decided to put on hold our 400 gig general deployment plans and wait for the start of 2021 to see if there was any member interest. But decided to go ahead and test the Nokia 7750 SR2 during the autumn of last year in anticipation for any potential member orders coming in. So last year we carried out the test of the SR2s in the SR2S in the October-November timeframe. We then migrated LON 1 from VPLS to EVPN during the first quarter of this year. We then in April sat down to reevaluate our 400 gig options. They were on top of the pandemic. The pandemic was the 2020 subject. The 2021 problem was the supply chain and the issues getting hardware delivered. So decided to go ahead and test the Juniper MPC cards for the MX960s, which were now available, and decided that to go ahead and test the SR7S as a fully integrated EVPN PE, as we felt that it provided much better scalability and long-term. It was a more long-term strategic solution rather than the SR2, which is just a two-slot router. The outcomes there is that we completed the POC, certifying the SR2S. We were doing the POC during August and September this year, and completed at the end of September. And during the month of October, we've done a POC with Juniper to certify the MPC-10 cards, both for use as a member-facing port and as a core-facing port. So we have now looked at all the use cases for the MPC-10 cards. Our 400 gig deployment plans for long one is that 400 gig is available today for order. You can speak to our sales team and they will be more than happy to take your order. We do have two orders in place, and we are aiming to deliver those by the end of this month, first week of December. You can order today at any of our telehouse locations where we will be long lining from Telehouse North, or our Harbor Exchange. And for those though that are not familiar with Harbor Exchanges, this is Equinix LD8. Future deployments will be based on member demands, but we're most likely thinking of Slough, where we think there is a huge demand, or there's interest, or somewhere in interaction where we have members that move a lot of traffic. The supported optical interfaces today are LR8 and FR4. LR8 has a reach of 10 kilometers, and FR4 has a reach of 2 kilometers. We're looking at adding more support for other transceivers as the vendor support increases. The reason we're only supporting two transceivers today is because of the version of software that we've gone in the Nokia router. Nokia releases their long-term support versions in October every year. That meant that when we first tested during the summer, the only version available was last year's version, and that's the one we're going with at launch. We're hoping to be able to add LR4s, which will be as their a much more affordable transceiver shortly after next year. Our future plans on long run, as Richard already commented in his presentation before, are to add 400 gig in the core. That will see us test the high density car on the MX10K. That we are hoping that it's going to be available at some point during the first half of next year, hopefully the first quarter of next year. And then upgrade our transport equipment that we use, Sienna and Smart Optics, to 400 gig. For the other LANs, we're going to be looking at 400 gig where we use EdgeCore and IP Infusion. That means today that's not only LAN 2, but we can potentially support 400 gig if there is demand in Manchester and Jeddah. And JEDIX, and then looking again at our options with the transport and see how we're going to upgrade the transport. And that's all from me. Thank you very much. Any questions?